Hey, hello, and welcome to the show. It's me, John Park, and it's time for JP's product pick of the week. Thanks for tuning in. Here we are. And when I say we, I mean, well, me and you, the viewers who are probably hanging out in one of our chats. That's the segue. The chat. Go over to the Adafruit Discord if you want to chat. I'm also checking out the YouTube chat. I'm not over in Twitch and some of the other places, so if you're wondering where people are talking away with their fingers, it's probably in Discord, and you can get there by going to adafruit.it/Discord and head over to the live broadcast channel, and there you'll see such lovely people as Dr. C. Grover, Mr. Certainly, S. Riggs. Hello, 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 everybody. Nice to see you all. Hey, Hutto Dan. Nice to see you. The YouTube chat, we've got Anthony. Hi, Anthony. Dave, Gary, welcome. Patrick, hello, hello. So let's see, one thing that I want to do right away before I forget is send you to the place where the discounts live. So you can get that kind of discount by pointing your camera at that thing down there or this URL here, and that's going to take you to our product page for this week's product pick of the week. And if I refresh that, cross fingers, we should see, hey, it's half off. So 50% discount. This product has never been this inexpensive before, so head over there. But before I get too out of order, what I'd like to do is invite Ladyada to tell us a little bit about this product pick, and this one has a little bit of history, so we're going to go through a couple of stages of it leading up to today. So please take it away, Ladyada.
This is the MP3 FeatherWing. It's a music maker FeatherWing because it actually does more than play MP3s. It can play waves, it can play Vorbis files, it can play like WMAs or some other format. Mostly people play, or AAC, most people play MP3s, you know, that's what people know it as. This chipset does all the decoding for you. So while you can do native decoding on some chips if they have enough power, it's you know, you have to kind of spend all your time just like playing music. What's nice about this chip is this does all of the work for you. You can basically pipe data read it from the SD card, pipe it to the chip, and like audio comes out. This one has a headphone jack. There may be in the future a version with an amplifier output. It's not out yet, don't ask. That's it, you're jamming. And that's it. But of course, the code on here, you know, you tell it what file you want to play, and you can pause it, and you can change the bass and the treble and the volume, and you can do all sorts of digital controls. So you kind of, it's great if you just want to like have a Feather that has some sound effects. This makes it very, very easy to do so. It's very powerful. Again, it can decode a wide variety of different formats, and it even comes with an SD card holder, or of course you can stream it over Wi-Fi if you have a Wi-Fi FeatherWing. And then you can also, as a bonus, it doesn't have microphone input, but you can use it as a MIDI synthesizer. Whoa. Yeah, it's a little bit weird. It's not, I don't know exactly, I guess they just like had one chip and they use it for both. But if you don't want to use it for MP3 decoding, if you solder a jumper on the bottom, you can put it into MIDI control mode, and then you send it MIDI messages, and it has like 100 built-in synthesizer effects. You can play audio as a synthesizer, not like a file. So if you want to have just like a music effect, like it has like my favorite is ocarina. There's an ocarina, so it sounds like an ocarina. There's piano, of course, and a couple drum machines. All built into this, but okay. Yeah, right now it's just playing the MP3, so you can do a couple different things, and I think it's great if people want to add audio. Okay. It's basically a music maker shrunken down to a FeatherWing. So. It is an update, well, a revision of the Music Maker FeatherWing. This time, instead of headphone out, it has an amplifier built in, and so you can just connect speakers directly. There's some 4-ohm speakers, and it will bump some tunes for you. It's works with all of our feathers, which is really nice. Even the ESP8266 or the NR52, it's all been tested, and you get MP3, Vorbis, even wave playback. And again, you have the amplifier built in, so it's really good for projects where you want to do some audio playback, and you don't want to have a separate amplifier. You just want to have speakers directly.
My entire music collection is an Vorbis Ladyada. I tip
not-
my fedora to you.
I'm not surprised, and I have a demo even. So, for example, here is the FeatherWing on top of a 328 or 324.
And we made this music, so YouTube, don't content ID us.
Yeah.
We have a physical album. We made this music.
So, drive some speakers very nicely. And it's not very loud because I don't want it to overwhelm, but you can get pretty loud, 3 watts per channel. Just make sure that your battery or your USB connector can supply the current. But pretty
You know
handy.
how loud it is? It's so loud that
6
when
watts.
Ladyada has her door closed and doing engineering far away from me, and I'm trying to sleep, I can still hear it.
All lies.
All right.
Very loud, but yeah, you want to do music playback, add it to your Feather. Who knows what you want to do, like Bluetooth,
It's a little too loud.
MP3.
Okay.
What?
It's okay.
It's good loud.
Yeah, good loud.
Good loud.
That's right, it's good loud. By the way, I love digging back into the archives of Ask an Engineer new section to play those some of those older videos of Phil and Lamore, because it's just fun. It's fun to see them and their banter. So let's see. Really cool board. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab one out of my mystery cabinet full of drawers of wonderment and joy, and then I'm going to show you some demos and talk about the product a little bit, show you some code. So hang on while I head over there. Hey, I'm back. Yeah, so that is our product pick of the week. It is the Music Maker FeatherWing with built-in amplifier. So as you saw, there's actually 2 versions of this that we have. One has a headphone out, so that's a lower level. This one actually has a stereo 3-watt amp on it. So you can plug it into speakers, which I'll show you a demo of. And actually, I have the other one, so I'll show you that one just because it was convenient for doing a demo of the MIDI stuff. But this can play back a whole bunch of different types of music formats with decoding built onto the chip. It's the VS1053 chip, and it can play back Vorbis, MP3, AAC, Wave, might be a couple of others in there. And like we said, it also has a general MIDI synthesizer built onto it with 127 different voices that you can pick from, and I'll show you how you do that. So we can dive into a couple demos. How about? So let's jump to my overhead for a second here, and what you'll see is I've got a little demo I've built here where I have a Feather. I'm actually just using a Feather M0, and then I have my Music Maker FeatherWing, and I have an SD card in it that has 3 MP3s on it that I placed onto there. And then you can see I'm just running 1 speaker, but you can do 2, you can do stereo, you can do a little stereo separation. And this particular Music Maker FeatherWing is really great when you want to do a compact project that is sort of self-contained and has its own sound source. So it's got the amp, it's got some speakers on it. Great for props, great for cosplay types of things. So let's take a look. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'll pull my microphone over to the speaker on there while I play so you can hear it. And 1 second. Oops. I've lost a window. There it is. All right, so I'll put this mic back. So you can see we get some decent sound out of that. Hopefully you could hear that well enough with the mic up, and I've got my air conditioning running, so it's actually a little hard to hear. I wonder if that tape is gonna hold. We'll see. Come on, gaffer tape, do your job. So what you'll see that I was doing there is actually, you can see the code here. I'm running this in Arduino. Unfortunately, we don't have this running in CircuitPython. There are some complexities involving timing and interrupts and things that means that this is Arduino only for the most part. I think you can do the sine wave sound off of it. It can generate its own sine wave. As far as music playback, you can definitely use it as a MIDI synth using CircuitPython, and I'll show you a bit about that. So that half of it, we got it covered. But as far as music playback right now, you're going to want to use Arduino for this. Sorry, I'm nervous about this mic falling. So what you can see here is I've got the VS1053 library being brought in here in Arduino, and then we're setting some pins that are going to talk to the board, talk to the chip, creating the object for the file player, calling it music player. And then we do a little bit of serial setup, and then we go ahead and play a sine test. So that's the first thing you'll hear when you restart this, is it'll play a little sine test just so you know things are working. Then we go and check for a SD card, and there's a little code at the bottom of this that is a function for checking the file system and seeing if we've got files on there that we can play. You set the volume here, lower is higher, set some interrupts if you've got them, and then we start playing one of the files here. So this says beepbox.mp3. So what I'm going to do is, if you watch the serial output there, I'm going to restart the board by just hitting reset on it. And so you can see there, it played its sound, its little sine test, then it checked the SD card. It actually tells me the name of the files that are on there, which is convenient because then you can go and ask for them by name in your code. And then what I have it doing is actually, it starts playing files and it'll play them through, but you can also interrupt them, which is great. So if you wanted to do things like fast forward or mix sound effects, if you're making a little soundboard, you can do that pretty easily. The way I'm triggering it, rather than using a button or something like that in here, is just with some serial commands. So you can see here, if I press A, it's going to play that first song. I can pause by hitting P. I can start playing again from where I was, and then I'd set it up for B and C to be the other songs. So that's something you could do with buttons and dials and selector switches and things like that. I just happen to have it set up for demonstration purposes inside of the serial console. And let's see, the next thing I wanted to do is actually talk about using the synthesizer for this. So I'm going to set this demo off to the side, and I'll bring something else in here. So here you'll see, let me go full screen on the, so here you'll see the bottom of the board, there's a little solder blob there, actually not so little, that I use to bridge two pads. And when those are bridged, it puts the chip into its synthesizer, MIDI synthesizer mode. You could use a switch for that if you wanted to be able to go back and forth between the two, but it's essentially in one mode or the other when it starts up. So you're not going to switch that on the fly. It's not going to be both a synth and a music playback as far as I know. Maybe it's possible, but I'm not using it that way. So you can see here, there are a couple of ways you could use this. One would be to actually stack it on top of a feather or set it side by side on a feather with a little feather doubler like you saw, or a little feather tripler like you saw here. And then what you'd be doing in code is using CircuitPython in classic MIDI mode, or UART MIDI. So it's just sending MIDI over its TX pin. And that lines up with the MIDI pin. So the TX pin on a feather lines up with the MIDI pin. You'll see there's a pin labeled MIDI under here. And it's, as long as we've got power to the board and a shared ground, then we can send MIDI from any device. In the case I'm describing a feather, but it could be any device that can send MIDI. And then this chip is going to play the MIDI sounds. It'll accept the bank select or program change to the different sounds, and it even has a couple of sort of hard-coded MIDI CC numbers that you can use to change the reverb and the volume and 2 or 3 other things. And so what I've got set up here is actually, instead of stacking it on a Feather, someone had actually asked this question a little while ago, could you use this essentially as a standalone synthesizer? And the answer is yes. You just need to, like I said, provide power, ground, and a MIDI signal over UART or over TX, which is what a classic MIDI device. If you go find a keyboard from 1983 that outputs MIDI, it would work with this. So you can see this one happens to be the not the amplifier version that I have over here. It's just what I had. So I've got a output going to a powered speaker over here. And then to run it, we've got options. So you could run it with, like I said, a traditional MIDI synthesizer, so something like this, but with real MIDI output would be ideal. I've actually got USB MIDI out on this, and if I have time to show the demo, I've got another box that converts that to sort of the classic MIDI, so I'm going a few directions with that signal. But for this demo right here, what I've got is my MIDI tester that I showed before, which was originally just for USB, but I decided to update it to send out classic UART over the TX cable, and I'm using actually the I2C Stemma QT cable to do that. So I'm getting power and ground, transmit and receive, although this isn't sending anything the other way around. So let's see. I'm gonna, so you can hear, I'll put the volume up a little. So I'm just testing, this is a chromatic keyboard, so things I play on it probably won't sound so great. But what I can do is I can change the patches. And it's polyphonic, you can send multiple notes at once. Let's see, Ladyada said she likes the ocarina sound, and I'm going to show you how I know this, but that is actually sound number 80. And that's because this is a standard that was created along with the MIDI standard back in the 1980s of the preset sounds. Okay, so that's the ocarina sound. And then there's a bunch of them in here. Weird one. Okay, and that's the top one. That's as far as it goes. Now, the interesting thing, actually, one other thing I want to show you is that when we're talking MIDI, we have these channels that MIDI can be sent over. So you could typically have like 3 pieces of gear and send from one keyboard to channel 1 to one piece of gear, channel 2 for another. Maybe channel 3 is going to a drum machine. And actually, when it's drum machines, typically that's channel 10. It's, again, just a sort of convention. So what I'm going to do is I've updated this so that I can pick a channel. And now, if I send things over channel 10, instead of acting as like a pitch-based MIDI keyboard, this is going to trigger drum sounds that, again, are in sort of preset places. I'm going to move that speaker closer. Oh, it's crackling, sorry. Okay, I'm not much of a finger drummer. But you can see there, again, this little versatile chip on here can do the full drum side of MIDI, which is pretty cool. And in fact, someone just shared over in the chat, so I wanted to show this. If we head to the product page, down in the bottom of the product page, we have technical details. If you click on that, it'll take you to the main guide for the Music Maker FeatherWing. And this pertains to both the headphone out version and the amplifier out version that you can see there. If we take a look at the downloads section, one of the downloads is the datasheet for this chip. So this tells you all the different formats of music that it can decode, which is really cool. A lot of details on the implementation. And you will also see there's info about the use of playing sine waves and the MIDI implementation. If I look, I'm going to search in here. If I look at, just search for the word MIDI, let's see, it shows up 35 times. Let's get to the chart, hopefully. I've passed it, haven't I? Oh, Todd, what page was that on? You have it pulled up over on the over in the chat. Let's scroll a little bit. This is also something you can find just by Googling for the general MIDI implementation chart. It'll tell you what the different patches are. There they are. So as I was scrolling through back over on channel 1, whoops, let's go to channel 1, there we go. So patch 43 right here, that is a cello. If we look at the beginning of those, there's a lot of pianos in there. You can get some more effects kinds of things in the later numbers here. This will be a clarinet. Let's go Tinkerbell on 113. What's that? Ooh, fun. So the that's the MIDI implementation in a nutshell. Again, like I said, the cool thing is that this is a really versatile chip that can do both the playback. Let me switch cameras here. Both the playback of sounds in one mode, and that's, like I said, pretty much geared towards Arduino right now. I know there are some attempts being made to get that driver to work under CircuitPython, but there are challenges. So for now, you'd want to use this, like someone said in the chat, you could use this to build an open source MP3 player, which is really cool. You could use it for triggering sounds and props. And actually, one thing I'm hopeful of is that with a little bit, just a little bit more work, this should run on the Feather RP2040, which is really interesting because the Feather RP2040 on its own is not going to be able to decode MP3. You'll notice some of our chips, like the M4 chip, can decode, in the NRF52840, I believe, they can decode MP3 on their own, so you kind of don't need something like this. But if you want to use the RP2040, I think with just a little bit of work, inside of Arduino, you'll be able to get that to play sounds for you, as well as it's got the built-in amplifier, which is really cool. So let's see, any other questions over in the chat? Let me know. I'm looking over at the Discord chat. Hey, Tall, Dark, and Weirdo, nice to see you. He said, I feel like it's dying to become a concealed audio graffiti device. That's cool. Yeah, I like that. And you can do a lot with it, like I said, plugged into a Feather and talking to it in Arduino, have it react to things based on sensors, change its volume, play snippets of things in random orders. There's a lot you can do programmatically. Then it also just has this other fun side of things where it can be a MIDI synthesizer, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be plugged onto a Feather. You could plug anything that talks classic serial MIDI to it. So that's kind of cool. Let's see. What have I forgotten? Have I forgotten anything? There's a pretty picture of it right there. You can see it's got the holes in it for Feather layout pins. Comes with some pin headers to plug into there. There's actually a couple extra on one end you can snap off and save them for another day. And it has these screw terminals, which are nice for plugging in the speaker of your choice up there on the top. You could, of course, also use other types of connectors on there or solder directly to it, depending on your use, because these things sometimes can pull out. Those are in pretty good based on the type of wire that's there, but that's not always the case with these. Like I said, SD card for storing your files, which again, this is a M0 that I have on here. Not a lot of room to store stuff if you're doing native MP3 playback in CircuitPython on it, but if you're willing to go over to Arduino, now you can have sky's the limit on SD card storage. I think this might be a 8 gigabyte card on there, so I'm not going to run out of space quickly with MP3s. Let's see, any other thoughts or questions? Let me know in the chat. Oh, okay, so Rich said has a question. What box do you use to convert the USB MIDI to normal MIDI? So yeah, let's go a little over here. If I can keep this working, let me bring, I won't demo it because I won't be able to plug it all in easily over there. But what I'm using is a beautiful little box called the RK006 from RetroKits. And you can see it has an on-the-go cable for power and USB data, so it can bring in USB MIDI. It's a USB MIDI host. So this dumb USB MIDI keyboard, and these things are really dumb, this dumb USB MIDI keyboard needs to be plugged into a host device that has the smarts. So this little box here, RK07, can host it, and then it's got 10 outputs for serial MIDI, for clock, gate. You can even sort of do CV over it, PWM CV. So the setup that I built here, I actually have this gray cable going into a little TRS MIDI slot, and that's going to the box there. So that means this box is sending TRS MIDI over to this little gizmo, and then this little gizmo sends out its audio from that there. You can see why I didn't want to replug it in. So that box converts the USB MIDI that's hosted into the classic MIDI, lots of channels of it, and then it also does a ton more. You can program it to filter things, to do weird shifts of octaves for you, make its own arpeggios. It can do a ton. It's pretty cool. So that's the RetroKits RK007, or 006. They have a 7, that's a DIY thingy. So that's the box I'm using. There are a few options out there of things that convert USB hosted MIDI into a sort of TRS MIDI or classic MIDI DIN5 signal. All right, other questions? I think that's going to do it. This is a cool board. I've used it before in props. I think it's the one that I had in one of my earlier versions of the Lucio Blaster gun for firing off sound effects. It's really great for that sort of thing. And the SD card slot is pretty cool compared to some of the other options out there if you need to just load a new sound pack onto a device and just order them in a certain way. This is a great card, or a great board to do it with. All right, so I think it's time to wrap it up. Don't forget, if you head to that page right there during the show, you're going to get 50% off, which is a terrific deal. We've never put this thing on such a deep discount before, I don't think. And there's a lot of tutorials on how to use it. This was actually part of one of the Ada boxes. I think Ada Box 6 maybe had this in it. So there's a lot of projects out there for using this in all kinds of interesting ways, including connecting up to Adafruit I/O or web-based things, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. You can trigger it from all kinds of different feathers with different capabilities, which is really cool. All right, so let's wrap it up. Thanks for coming by, first of all. And for Adafruit Industries, I'm John Park. This is my product pick of the week. It is the Music Maker FeatherWing. It plays back MP3s, WAV files, and it's a MIDI synthesizer. I'm going to go ahead and set that there on my product pick wall of goodness, and thank you so much. I'll be hanging out in the chat a little bit if you have further questions, but go get yourself one of these, or 2, or 10. That's the most I think we'll sell at this price to one person. And I want to hear about your plans if you're getting 10 of them. So that is going to be available at this price just during the show. So when I log off, you've got a little bit of a grace period, I think, if it's in your cart, to go ahead and buy it, and otherwise it'll jump back up to the regular price. So thank you, everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.